2003's Backyard Wrestling Don't Try This at Home didn't receive the fanfare that usually warrants a next year's sequel. But that's exactly what happened in 2004 when Backyard Wrestling 2 There Goes the Neighborhood hit store shelves in November in the US and Europe and April of 2005 in Japan. Just like the previous installment, the game saw two platform options, the PS2 and Xbox, and today we'll be looking at the Xbox version. The game was once again developed by Paradox Development and published by Eidos Interactive. The intro is reminiscent of the one we got in the previous entry, with lots of clips of hardcore indie and backyard wrestling, only this time it isn't set to an ICP track. Just like its predecessor, There Goes the Neighborhood suffers from a major lack of play modes, with even less than before. This time you have the option to have a one-on-one exhibition match, or play the game's career mode. Wrestler selection has been improved with even more mainstream inclusions like New Jack, Sandman, Vampiro, Vic Grimes, and even Sanjay Dutt. We also see names like Tylene Buck, ICP, Rude Boy, and a few others return to the lineup. Some names outside of the wrestling business are here as well, like porn stars Tara Patrick and Sunrise Adams, as well as musician Andrew WK. And Danzig? No, never mind, some guy named Zandig. And some guy named Ruckus that I've never heard of, but based on his attire, he looks like he's taken a bit of influence from New Jack. There's a few others that I can't seem to find any info on, so I'm not quite sure if they're original characters designed for the game or just wrestlers that really never made names for themselves. We see all new levels, now actually called levels, including backyard, trailer park, pool, mini golf, office, restaurant, construction site, brewery, junkyard, and of course, since it's an ICP affiliated game, a carnival. I definitely like the level designs here better than the first, but my biggest complaint would be the fact that most of them are smaller than before. The game controls are more or less what we got last game with a few minor modifications. Your standard attacks are still X and A for strikes, B for grapple, and Y to pick up weapons. Once in a grapple, things change a bit, with B now being used to apply submissions and Y for Irish whips. X and A together still perform finishers, which can be pulled off once your turbo meter has filled, but this meter can be depleted from using the dash function, so you have to use it strategically. Pinning has been dedicated to the white button, while L is now used for the new blocking function. Blocking in the game is interesting to say the least. By simply putting up your arm in defense, your player can now yield off any attack, even those from weapons. Chainsaw attack? No problem, bring it on, my forearm will stop it. This definitely creates a new dynamic to the game, but it does get spammed pretty frequently by the AI. The counter system has changed as well. Now you simply press L and R together at the start of an attack to reverse it. This is a much easier process to pull off than before. There are also special attacks specific to each stage. These are activated by pressing Y during a grapple once the indicator appears. These are definitely one of my favorite aspects of the game. And if you're having trouble learning the buttons, you're in luck, as control diagrams are shown during loading screens. So even though the basic controls haven't changed much, the gameplay has. Everything runs a bit slower here, which is a good thing in my opinion. And one of the biggest problems from the last game, the AI constantly throwing weapons, has been fixed. In fact, now they almost never throw weapons. And speaking of weapons, we see some cool additions that really push the hardcore envelope. Things like chainsaws, drills, and jackhammers can now be used to inflict as much bodily harm as possible. Not only have graphics been overhauled, but move animations have as well, appearing a lot smoother here. And the pre-fight taunts used previously have been replaced with these cool little level intros that are actually really clever and fun to watch. With all the improvements we see, there are still a lot of shortcomings. The difficulty is still a bit steep. In fact, I found this one probably harder than the first installment. And despite the new levels looking pretty good, there is the occasional not meant to be seen portion of a stage that looks horrendous. The sound for the most part is fine, but certain weapons make strange noises that don't quite fit. The AI can still be pretty dumb at times, not knowing quite what to do, and we still see the occasional issue with collision detection. Another thing that bothered me, and I know it's a small gripe, but during the long finishers, if your opponent gets knocked out before you've completed the move, you won't even get to see it finish, it just cuts straight to your winning pose. Backyard Wrestling Don't Try This at Home featured a pretty extensive soundtrack with plenty of big name artists, and that continues here as well, with names like Hoobastank, Mudvayne, Fallout Boy, Body Count, ICP, Andrew WK, Lamb of God, Saliva, KRS-One, and many others. There's plenty of diversity on this soundtrack. The video library returns, this time called Media Room, with each wrestler featuring their own video, some of them locked from the start of the game. I found it strange that these videos don't include music, especially considering the extensive soundtrack. The few videos that do feature music are simply enough titled music videos. Last year's Create a Wrestler was disappointing to say the least, so it's great to see that they've improved on it here, but it's still far from what the WWE games were offering at the time. Even though there are new options to modify specific body parts, opposed to non-customizable templates, we still see limited options for faces, with only 6 pre-made selections offered up. We do see some decent attire options, all of which can be selected in various colors, but these colors are chosen by pressing the L button, making it tedious to find the color you want as you have to cycle through each option. And even worse, if you accidentally pass the color you desire, you'll have to cycle all the way back through to select it again. Kind of a minor thing, but it did get on my nerves a little. We also see a new custom logo option, and while the idea is great, it's a little bit limited. You can select from some pretty basic designs, then decide where to place the logo while changing the size, position, and color. It's not perfect, but I'd rather have it than not. Not only do moves have traditional names this time around so you can easily identify them, but this time they can be previewed without leaving the Create mode and navigating to a separate menu, which is great. What isn't great is only 5 spots for created wrestlers. At least that's what it looks like judging by the wrestler selection menu, but to be fair, I didn't actually try to create more than 5, so hopefully this isn't the case. And when you're done creating the most perfect specimen to ever walk God's green earth, you can enter him or her into the game's career mode. There is a plot here, but just like last year, it's pretty irrelevant. The president of Backyard Wrestling Incorporated holds a press conference announcing to an unnamed city that they've been chosen to host the promotion's next event live on pay-per-view, hence the game's name, There Goes the Neighborhood. Each level features 5 missions that need to be completed in order to unlock the tournaments. Missions start off simple enough. For example, early on there's a mission that requires you to perform 5 dash attacks during your match, but as the mode progresses, they become more difficult. The instructions state, and I quote, "You don't have to defeat an opponent in order to complete the mission. You can quickly run through career mode by completing missions and immediately quitting match play." I just found that funny for some reason. It's like they're saying, you don't have to really play through our game, just start a match, complete the task, and quit. That way you can be done and have time to play something else. You can edit your wrestler from the home section and purchase attire items with money earned in the mode from the shop. The thing here is you can't preview items before you purchase them, so you're buying based on name alone. This is also where you can purchase the rest of the wrestlers' videos for the media room. Overall, I'd have to say I actually enjoy this mode over the previous games. The inclusion of missions and the ability to purchase items makes the experience a little more enjoyable. At the end of the day, Backyard Wrestling There Goes the Neighborhood isn't a horrible game, but it's definitely far from great. It offers up some entertaining aspects, even in its flaws, and for me at least can lead to some fun in short spurts, just like the first game. And one thing I find cool is the fact that on paper these two games seem like almost the same game, but they play so differently that it's worth picking up both if you're a hardcore wrestling fan. And these can be had pretty cheaply, so check them out if you haven't already. And that's it for today's episode. I've got more videos coming soon, so stay tuned, and like always, thanks for tuning in.